A long time ago, there was a homeless man named Ben who asked a vet named Dr. Anthony to help his pet Ruby, but Dr. Anthony said no in a mean way, making Ben very sad and unable to do anything. Dr. Anthony didn't realize that saying no would cause him problems later. Now, as Dr. Anthony looked at what was happening in front of him, he felt sorry for saying no to Ben before. Dr. Anthony was leaving the animal clinic after finishing his work. As he was walking to his car, he heard someone call his name loudly from behind. It was Ben and Ruby, and they looked healthier than before. Ruby barked at Dr. Anthony as they slowly approached him. Ben said to Dr. Anthony, "Do you remember us?" He sounded upset. Dr. Anthony didn't know what to say. He had been thinking about the day he first met Ben and Ruby almost every day and couldn't forget it. But unlike Dr. Anthony, Ben remembered that day as if it happened yesterday. It was the day that changed his life forever. Ruby had gotten very sick after spending a night in the pouring rain with no shelter. Ben desperately asked for help from people on the street, but no one seemed to know how to help him, so he went to the nearest veterinarian clinic he could find. Ben knew he didn't have any money to pay the vets there, but he hoped they would still treat Ruby. He was too scared of losing Ruby to bear it any longer. He went into the clinic with Ruby in his arms and was surprised to see so many people looking at him. He felt defeated and started to cry as he placed Ruby on the counter. He said, "I need help. Can you please help my dog?" The man behind the counter was veterinarian Dr. Anthony, who had just come out of the operating room checking the bookings for today. He looked Ben up and down, and then at the dog. "Do you have an appointment?" he asked him coldly. Ben shook his head, tears now streaming down his face. "Please, I don't know what to do. He's so sick." Dr. Anthony sighed when he saw the dog and said, "I'm sorry, but we're fully booked today. I can't help you." He walked away to call in the next patient. Ben felt defeated, picked up Ruby, and sat on the sidewalk. He hugged Ruby tightly, feeling weak and upset. A young woman from across the street saw Ben's plea for help and came running to ask what was wrong. She was studying to be a vet, so she couldn't do everything Dr. Anthony could, but she started helping Ruby, and he began to get better. Ben brought Ruby to her house every day for treatment. He was angry at Dr. Anthony and wanted to make him regret not helping Ruby. As he stood in the woman's living room, thinking about his revenge, Ruby playfully jumped up at him, looking healthier than ever. Ben sighed in amazement and asked the woman, "How can I ever thank you?" She smiled and said, "You don't have to. Just promise me that you'll take care of him and come to me if he gets sick again." Ben nodded his head. Then he noticed the veterinarian clinic again, and his feelings of happiness and relief were quickly replaced with frustration and anger. Why did Dr. Anthony refuse to help Ruby when he was clearly in need? He had to figure out a way to make Dr. Anthony regret his decision. Now he had something to wake up for in the morning, and the most exciting of all, he had a reason to go by Paige's house. Because he had no resources of his own, like a computer, he decided to tell Paige about his plan. She was a bit confused at first, but later realized how badly he wanted to do this. Days melted into one another as Paige and Ben dove deep into uncovering Dr. Anthony's past. Their quest led them to Old Town libraries. There, amidst faded photographs, was Dr. Anthony in his younger years, smiling broadly beside a rescued dog. Paige came across an old article that talked about how Dr. Anthony used to volunteer at animal shelters, where he saved injured animals that were almost dying. She traced the words with her finger and said, "He was a local hero." While driving to the cafe with Ben, Paige wondered aloud, how did he change from that to? The soft light brought back memories of her internship days when she was new to the field. Dr. Anthony's clinic was the perfect place for her to learn. At the time, Dr. Anthony was well known for his kindness and skills, but as time went on, she noticed a change in him. The cheerful vet who used to mentor her began to withdraw. One day, a distressed pet owner came in with a cat that had frostbite, and Dr. Anthony barely paid attention, saying, "It's just a cat." This shocked Paige, and she took care of the cat herself. One quiet evening, Paige decided to leave the clinic that had once been her learning haven because it had become suffocating. When she handed in her resignation, Dr. Anthony didn't say anything. Now in the present, Paige looked at Ben and said, "I left because I couldn't stand seeing him like that. But now, knowing everything, we need to help him, Ben." She took a deep breath and said with determination, "He used to be a great vet, and maybe, just maybe, We can find a way to bring him back. Paige and Ben realized the power of community to bring about change. They wanted to involve everyone, including friends, neighbors, and even people who used to go to Dr. Anthony's clinic. They believed that by bringing the community together, they could inspire hope and transformation. Posters started appearing around town, hinting at a big event. Although they didn't directly mention Dr. Anthony, those who knew the story could understand what it was about. The event was about change, healing, and the community coming together. Paige organized volunteers, and Ben talked to local businesses for support. The excitement was growing, and their efforts were no longer just for Dr. Anthony. Each day, the event got stronger, and their hope for Dr. Anthony was clear. The town still cared deeply. Paige said, "Baker's Delight will provide pastries, and craft stores are giving supplies at Town Central Square." Ben got on a small stage, and as he spoke with emotion, the crowd fell silent and some people wiped away tears. It was clear that Ruby wasn't just Ben's dog. He was like the town's mascot. After Ben shared his heartfelt story, a strong sense of unity spread through the community. People came forward to offer help, and some shared their own stories of Dr. Anthony's kindness in the past. The local radio station said they would talk about the event, and kids from the school started making signs. The plan, which used to be a secret, was now a sign of hope. Paige checked every little thing carefully, like the speakers and where people would sit. Ben worked with the volunteers to make sure they all knew what to do. Then, Ben took an envelope out of his bag and put it on the clinic's counter. He didn't say anything, but his voice sounded steady yet full of feelings. Dr. Anthony opened the envelope carefully, and as he looked at each picture that came out, it was like seeing moments from a long time ago. There was a young Dr. Anthony, smiling and helping a hurt bird. In another picture, he was laughing with other volunteers. The picture showed the story of a man who really loved what he did. Dr. Anthony finally asked, "Why are you showing me these?" His voice was choked with emotion. Ben said, "To remind you of who you used to be, of all the lives you helped. This town hasn't forgotten." Inside the clinic, Dr. Anthony's hands were shaking as he put the photos down. Outside, more and more people were gathering, and you could see their shadows on the clinic's frosty windows. They had signs they made themselves, with messages of support for Ben, Ruby, and all the animals Dr. Anthony had taken care of. Paige, standing on a little stage they set up, took a deep breath and said, "I used to work with Dr. Anthony. I saw a man who cared a lot, but also a man who lost his way." She told stories that showed the good and not so good times. Inside, Dr. Anthony couldn't take his eyes off Paige as he watched her through the window. Every word and story made Dr. Anthony feel more open and less guarded. But that wasn't the end of his change. He saw the potential in young people who wanted to become vets, so he offered to teach and guide them. He wanted to share all the knowledge and experience he had gained over the years so that the next generation could be well prepared. As things changed, Paige and Dr. Anthony found common ground. Their previous arguments and misunderstandings didn't matter much anymore because the clinic had a new purpose and energy. It used to be a sad place, but now it was full of laughter, talking, and the happy sounds of animals. When clients left, they were happy with the care their pets got. Everyone could see that a new and better era had begun, one filled with kindness, growth, and endless hope. In the end, this story wasn't just about a vet finding his love for his work again. It showed how being understanding, patient, and giving people another chance could change lives. The message was clear: love, understanding, and not giving up could heal even the most broken relationships.